Good evening, everyone. It's October 11th, 2023, and right now futures are trading above settlement highs over here, as well as settlement highs there's on the NASDAQ, as well as the RTH high from today as well. So we are trading quite bullishly. I'd mentioned that the earliest I'd be looking for a fade to the downside is maybe Thursday or something like that. Maybe by then we could get below settlement lows. But wow, given the way this is moving, it's not looking like it's coming tomorrow. Now, tomorrow we do have the CPI event pre-market at 8:30, and if it's like any other CPI event, I'm sure we'll have some crazy overnight range, and then the market will move a million different ways, and I probably will not be trading. Important to also note that today's move up came on negative data. You can see actual greater than the forecast is good for currency. So if it's good for currency, it's usually bad for stocks. And instead, we've had a nice green day on the QQQ, on the SPY, and on the IW. Oh, the IWM actually finished a little bit red, my bad. But overall, the stock market doing pretty decently. I think the Dow the Dow closed a little bit red, but overall not too bad. Still got a strong bid off the lows. So overall, the market is still climbing upwards. And I want to note that coming into the day, I was a little bit, I was still long biased. And yeah, I guess it ended up being right. I got long at what was it, 96-ish? Yeah, I got long here around 10 a.m. I was I was unfortunate in that I wanted to actually take this right here along that false breakdown below the IB. Instead, I was stuck in that 96, 97-ish long, whatever it was, and I ended up having to break even after getting about, I think, 70% to my target. I got out of it, and the market ended up crapping out. I think I took a loser somewhere around here, a -2 or something, a small loss. What I want to note is that I'm unable to show these two tabs up here, as that is proprietary stuff by Mr. Shapiro. However, I do think I'm able to say that I am able to state, because this is public information, that the CO2 COT report was showing that although the SPY and the QQQ, or I suppose the ES and the NQ and the instead of the Dow Jones would be looking at the YM, RTY, all these things. These were all showing somewhat neutral in terms of short or long positioning. There was no strong indication of it leaning one way or the other. However, the Dow YM on the futures was showing some pretty strong short positioning. And this kind of goes in line with what I was thinking in general, which is that this week has just seemed, sorry, this rally has seemed weak. The volume on it has been declining every day. You can see that here on the YM, declining with every single green day. You can see that on the IWM ETF, declining as we're rallying. You can see this on the NASDAQ, declining while we're rallying. You can see it really clearly on the SPY, declining while we're rallying. Today did 62 million shares. Every single down day has done significantly more than that. I mean, even going back to the summer, back in August, we were getting larger red days than that. So getting some really, really mediocre volume, having an inside day today, still unable to close that gap up around 439 or whatever that is, 438s. So to me, this has just been short covering. The entire time I've been thinking this was short covering, and then when looking at that data, that COT, I keep wanting to say CO2. When looking at the COT report, it's showing the exact same thing, that this is short covering. So to me, this is just a reload for lower prices. So if tomorrow, the only thing that would change that in my head is if we saw shorts still extremely short the Dow, and tomorrow's data came in negatively for stocks, and we closed with a green day. In other words, as Shapiro calls it, a news failure session occurred, despite being up 1,000 points off the lows on the Dow. If we saw something like that, it would be fuel for higher, for significantly higher. You'd be looking at whatever 34, 35, 34,500, 35,000 on the on the Dow, somewhere around, something like this, right? Maybe that would send the Qs up to here, 376-ish. Maybe it sends the SPY up to here, 444-ish, where that preliminary supply was. But in general, I'm looking at this market as simply being a short cover rally, no strong positioning on the SPY or the Nasdaq or the Russell, and mostly this just being a move up in the Dow. We don't have to get into all this stuff. I've just been reading too many of his damn reports lately. But this CL stuff, even with the Israel news this week, even with that, this thing was just so friggin' crowded to the long side that it's just continuing to dump lower. So right now we do have a case of just people just got too long the commodities like oil, and they got too short stuff like the Dow. And so we are just getting sort of this reflexive rally occurring, and whether that accelerates tomorrow or drops, I've got no clue. But that is just sort of a background as to what's happening. In terms of trading this thing tomorrow, I need to see where the overnight range ends up. But if we start breaking the overnight low, if we start breaking, honestly, the close, the settlement close here, T2C, T plus 2 close. If we start breaking below there, I would imagine we break today's low of the day, get into settlement lows, break that, and potentially get back inside that old weekly high and the prior week's high and start to really reverse into sort of this area where I imagine we'll find some bids. If instead the data comes out nicely, we break the overnight high, so we start accepting higher, I imagine we go ahead, close this gap, probably even not bother selling off of there and maybe get more so into something like this 441-ish kind of spot. Yeah, that looks pretty good. 440 half to 441-ish. That looks like a nice spot. NQ, or QQQ, I suppose, not too different of a story. We were able to break yesterday's high, so not an inside day on the Qs. We are trading above this right now on the futures. If we do break out of here, I'm looking for higher prices in the event that we do get that overnight high break, all that sort of acceptance higher, the IB high, blah, 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 blah. I am looking for us to get into kind of this 374 area. That corresponds with the big chart somewhere around here. It's been a nice spot. If we take all this off, you can get an idea what I mean. Something like that. Kind of levelly, yeah, around 374-ish, 375. To the downside, if we end up breaking this sort of area where we've had support, if we end up breaking pretty much where this breakout auction was, I imagine we head on lower, break this, break the daily low, get into the settlement lows over here, and start to sell off a bit. I don't think these will hold. I think we'll head down lower. Ignore that it's green right now, but I do think we'd go ahead, go down lower, fall inside last week's range, and maybe find some bids somewhere around here, this 363-ish area. Anyway, not really too interested in trading this tomorrow. I don't like CPI days very much. They don't seem to follow statistics very well. If I do trade, it'll probably be sized down. Anyway, hope that makes sense. Hope that helps. Point being is that so far this is just a short cover rally from what I can see, and until the volume starts to pick up, some sort of genuine buying occurs. And by the way, we had some big sells today at the close. Where is it? There you go. We had some really big selling at the close. 1,500, 1,500, 14, 1,000. 3,000. This is on ES, 3,000. Some really heavy sells at the close. Until that changes, I'm a little bit biased to the downside. I'm struggling to see the fundamental move behind this to go higher. Anyway, hope that makes sense. Hope that helps. Have a great night. Trade this safe if you are trading it overnight. I don't expect any big moves ahead of Globex, ahead of CPI data. Have a good night.